And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Today I had not intended on streaming, but something rather interesting came up. So Prime Minister's Questions, when it usually is, I just had to do this instead, and we'll see how long this goes for. I'm not too sure it'll go for too long because there's not many visuals to add to this stream. I should probably check to see if it's actually live on the correct channel. It is. Hello, Tiger Lily and Ichabod. Hang on a sec. Oh yeah, live chat is the correct one. As a number of you may have noticed from the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the House of Lords and the uber exciting Brexit discussion. But before we do that, Tiger Lily, this is addressed to you especially. My tentacle blanket arrived today. It is actually behind me on my bed. It does look rather nice. I wasn't best impressed paying UPS freaking 24 quid in customs charges, but that bridge has been crossed now. Thanks to the help of somebody whose channel I'm going to link in the description actually. Yes. I'll put a picture of it on Twitter, Tiger Lily, after the stream. So anyway, back to the topic. I got overlooked. Basically earlier on my tablet, and also someone did in fact DM me this, although I saw the tablet thing first. There's an article from the Huffington Post. Now I don't care that it's written by the Huff Post. I don't know why it came up as a briefing, as part of the briefing part of the app, but it did anyway, and it intrigued me. I don't have HuffPost as an app on my tablet, I promise. But the title reads, May suffers major Lords defeat as peers vote to keep open option of EU Customs Union membership. Now, that title was a bit misleading, or the title I originally saw was misleading because it implied that we're staying in the Customs Union. It was very clickbaity. Hello, Laura, again. I really enjoyed watching you play that game earlier. That was fun. I might get that game. Now, there are a number of things that concern me about this particular event. Did they huff again? Maybe. The thing about this, first of all, the House of Lords bothers a lot of people. Because the House of Lords, for those that don't know, are not elected. They are selected. They are not voted for by the people, and yet they seem to be acting in the interests of the, quote, people, but they're not. They're acting in the interests of themselves, which is one of the major points about this. And it bugs me. It bugs me because I know a lot of the people who have gone into that room. I think only one or two have actually been MPs, some of whom old ones, some deceased of course. Margaret Thatcher, she was in the House of Lords as well at one point. Chakrabarti is a Labour MP, she's in there. There aren't many that were MPs. Some have been speakers. That doesn't necessarily mean they were... No, they were MPs, but it doesn't mean that they are representative of the people either. They act very selfishly. And if they were truly going to act in the interests of the people, they would support motions that were, let's face it, a part of the whole bloody Brexit vote in the first place. In fact, I believe if I go to Twitter, there's no images for this, so I do apologise. As I said, this wasn't a planned one, so I didn't have a chance to put any images together. But if I go to Twitter, and one of the top tweets says, 17.2 million Brits already declared this null and void nearly 2 years ago. Abolish the House of Lords. That's Paul Joseph Watson, in reference to Sky breaking the news that the House of Lords voted 348 to 225 in favour of a customs union amendment to the EU withdrawal bill. What I really want to know is how many of the MPs that are in Parliament, not in House of Peers or House of Lords, it has both names, how many MPs are sat back thinking, this is probably one of the few times I'm okay with the House of Lords, because there aren't many MPs that actually stand in favour of the House of Lords being a thing unto itself. They voted down bills in the past. And I think I did see another tweet, if I find it. Mine is still the Abolish ones. Okay, so there's one here referencing the House of Lords are signing their own death warrant. They represent no one but themselves. The Lords should now be abolished in its current form and replaced with a second amending chamber that represents the people. Yeah, that I agree with. And the tweet below is the one I want to talk about. Finally, we see why we have a House of Lords. Because the elected chamber is not infallible. Indeed, it may be more vulnerable to irrational decisions due to most MPs fearing for their jobs and being vulnerable to coercion. I'm sorry, but they were voted by constituents. Their constituency basically sets out how they behave. They do not act outside that parameter, because if they do, they're no longer acting on behalf of their constituents, they are acting on their own interests. That separation is key here, something which I don't think a lot of MPs understand. And most of the tweets I see on this are basically a case of, we're going to rail on the House of Lords because they just suck. I think, here we go. Why in a so-called democracy would we pay people who've never been elected to anything in their life £305 a day to tell 17.4 million people who voted for Brexit that we did not know what we were doing? Such arrogance is breathtaking. The sooner House of Lords is abolished, the better, and I agree. This argument about the argument that people didn't know what they were voting for was put forward, I believe, in the more recent stream I did with Irate Bear on this channel, when Tony Blair was saying it, claiming that people didn't know the parameters. I'm sorry, we knew the parameters. It was leave the EU. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Yes, it's a vastly complex thing to negotiate, but it was simplified down to leave or remain because, honestly, do you want to add several more options to that list? How about leave the EU but stay a member of the customs union, which would mean we can't trade globally. That's not even a joke. We couldn't. And I think anyone who says that we can would be lying to themselves. Yeah. Anyway, that bugs me. It also actually is a very important point, because now adding that to the withdrawal bill means that we could end up just staying in the customs union, which defeats the whole point of Brexit to begin with. Binding us to something while having a transition period in place to negotiate trade, but keeping us in the customs union, which prevents us from trading. We basically are still members of the EU. We have to leave the single market, we have to leave the customs union, we have to leave the common fisheries policy. Is that so hard? Okay, so Miss Steam, you don't know a lot about the House of Lords. I'll tell you what, I will go and quickly find what is the House of Lords, because I do know, but I'd like to see something a bit more uniform. I know there's a video on YouTube. I could probably go and find that. Okay, that's fine. Actually, I can read this. So, to answer Miss Steam, what is the House of Lords? There's a question on the parliament.uk page. I'm going to read from it. I will put a link to it in the chat if you're interested at all in checking that out. The Lords started off as an advisory council to the King in 1215. King John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, sharing power with the nobility. Trade became more and more important, which led to the rise of a new merchant class, and by the 14th century, Edward III had two groups of advisors divided into chambers, the Lords and the Commons, made up of lesser knights and merchants. It's nice that we have such a glorious history. It's a shame it's absolutely fallen apart, really, hasn't it? This is why we have two houses in Parliament. As time passed, the Commons became increasingly dominant and the King became less powerful, which, as a lot of people know, led to a certain royal getting executed. Who is in the House of Lords? As society moved on and cultures changed, the question arose, how had these people earned their place? Which is a common question. For God's sake, I think J.K. Rowling's in there. So what if she's done something for literature? It isn't the person who created one of those underwear shops. I don't know what they're called. There's a very well-known one woman in this country. She's in the House of Lords. She's an entrepreneur, and I kind of get it. Alan Sugar's in there, so I get how some people have earned their place, but they cannot act in the interest of the people when they're not chosen by the people, because then their interests seem self-serving and not in the interest of the people. It is arrogance. It is absolute arrogance, elitist arrogance. Now the Lords is made up of people from all walks of life, political peers, crossbench peers, as well as hereditary peers and bishops. That one, hereditary peers, bugs the living shit out of me, and bishops bugs me a little as well. While the Church of England still has a reasonable following, it is diminishing, and I think it will get to the point where you're going to have people from other faiths in there if you don't reform it. That's not me taking a shot at the Church of England, but your followership is diminishing. There are other religions in this country that have quite sizable numbers that are not represented in that chamber, elected or not. I firmly believe in it being, well, taken apart, really. I don't care for it. There's only one good thing I like about the House of Lords, and that's when the Queen gives the speech, because she has to deliver this speech written for her by the current governing party. They could put "I am a colossal wank stain" on it, and she'd have to read it. It is hilarious, some of the crap she's had to read over the years. But it's very official, which I think is quite interesting. What does the House of Lords do? That's the final part of this. The House of Lords has three main functions: to question and challenge the work of the government, to work with the House of Commons to shape laws, and to investigate issues through committees and debates to help improve the way the country is governed. To me, this chamber should be a Senate. That's how I see it. It should not be people who are basically above it. And especially those that, no offence, just because you come from all different walks of life doesn't mean you have some inane knowledge that makes you useful in shaping law. No, it just tells me you've been in business. Congratulations. You've managed to successfully make a lot of money, which would guaranteed piss Jeremy Corbyn off, who I've not seen any tweets from him yet. I haven't looked to see whether he supported this or not. So I'm going to very quickly go and find out if Jeremy Corbyn, or any Labour MP for that matter, supported this. Let's go Jeremy Corbyn. I do apologise, by the way, to the chat if I'm not paying attention to you. Has he tweeted anything? There's reference to the Windrush stuff. Oh, don't close that. No, not BBC. Don't be special. Okay, did Jeremy Corbyn tweet? One. Oh, there's a no, Diane Abbott. Nope. No, there is no mention of it. Basically, there's Windrush stuff, which is PMQs for tomorrow, and obviously making Diane Abbott look good, which is rather interesting. Chat. Hello, chat. Hello to all 14 of you. Hello, Carlos and Sir Blue-Footed Booby. Yeah, okay, so most people are secular. So having religion in it, yeah, the religious element should be removed, but then the Church of England is a key part of our democracy. It's kind of weird. It's woven into so many stupid little bits of procedure. I would hope, certainly before the end of my lifetime, that it goes. Religion is removed from politics. I think there's a word for it, a very long word for separation of religion and politics. Yes, I'm not saying it on air because I can't be bothered. Anyway, I'm going to go back to that article. So hopefully this won't cause the microphone to go glitchy. Theresa May has suffered a major parliamentary defeat over Brexit, although technically it's not a parliamentary defeat. It's an unelected bollocks defeat, which showed, if anything, just how out of touch the chamber is. Although I say the chamber, there are at least some who are sensible enough to vote correctly, and I say correctly because there is only one way to vote in this, and that's to vote not to have that added to the withdrawal bill. Peers voted by 348 to 225 for a cross-party amendment to the EU withdrawal bill to require the government to say how its negotiations with Brussels would continue the crucial tariff-free trade arrangement with the European Union. Yay. The huge size of the majority underlined the strength of the alliance of Labour, Liberal Democrat crossbencher and Tory rebel peers, and spells trouble for the PM as a raft of other amendments are due in coming weeks. Well, as lovely as it is that Liberal Democrats and Labour are working together like this, which is laughable, they are just proving themselves to continue to be petulant, salty Ramonas. They do themselves no favours, and I don't see Corbyn tweeting about this. Let's see if Diane Abbott did as well, because she's got a gob on her. Diane Abbott. Let's have a look. Windrush. She wrote a letter about it. No, there's no mention of it. Let's have a look and see if Labour are on like a party Twitter maybe. The Labour Party, right? Okay. 1 year ago, Theresa May promised. Basically, it's just shots at Theresa May. They haven't really done much. What is wrong with you? You have an opportunity to actually like rail on her for that, but the Windrush thing really has like stuck in your head. How interesting. Okay, never mind. Let's continue with this ridiculous article, shall we? Let's see. Brexit Minister Lord Callanan warned that even if the amendment was passed, he would not give false hope that there will be any concessions as a result. Which is interesting because we've already moved on to the trade discussion, so I'm very interested to see how this would play out. And I mean not just in the sense that if people try and vote for us to stay in the customs union, would our then other deals that are being negotiated, not signed yet, be invalid? But also, would we have to pay tariffs on those negotiated trade deals, or would they be EU? Would there be EU noses or fingers in our pies? Anti-disestablishmentarianism is the correct word, actually. Oh dear. Anyway, hours later, Peers inflicted a second defeat on the government after they approved an amendment which aims to protect people's rights post-Brexit. 314 votes to 217. I'm not familiar with that one. Although the government has stated on so many occasions, that the intention is to protect the rights of EU nationals who are here working, along with protecting the rights of those that are UK nationals that work in continental Europe. This has been said so many times. Which then obviously makes you wonder what the fuck were the government doing if the House of Lords had to vote you down. When the unelected head of state is also the figurehead of the Church of England, things will always be screwy. Yes, you're quite right. And I'm sure that brings up many interesting discussions about the benefits and the negatives to having a monarch with virtually no political power at all. I don't particularly care about the monarchy too much. Okay, so one source for the government has said that the Lords is a Remainer holdout. Nothing has changed, which doesn't surprise me. In fact, I vaguely remember seeing quite a number of... What? I like that you've written refers BTO. I know your argument is valid, Laura, but because you wrote refers BTO, I've decided your argument is now invalid. You should be ashamed of yourself. But during the Brexit campaign, there were quite a number of those that are in the House of Lords, or House of Peers even, if you want to call it either or, that were very vocal of it. In fact, I think the majority were. Much like Parliament. But that doesn't matter, does it? It does not matter what the majority of Parliament think, because the people voted completely against them. And I think that's kind of a key point here. You say you're acting in the interest of the people because of some elitist arrogance, but if you're acting in the interest of the people, you'd accept their result and act in that interest for what benefits the result best, and not then to decide, well, actually, you know what? It'd be a fantastic idea if we just crept back in and kept on being a member of something that basically means we can't actually prosper outside the EU. Which it could be your fat fingers, Laura. Anyway, our policy on this subject is very clear. We are leaving the customs union. Yay. But apparently with this withdrawal bill, it certainly brings into question whether or not that's actually going to be the case or not. This should have put tits on the end. He'll believe anything with tits. Yes, that is quite right. Sorry. And will establish a new and ambitious customs arrangement with the EU while forging new trade relationships with our partners around the world, which sounds like cherry picking. It doesn't sound like a deal. It sounds like, oh, we want to do this with you, but we also want to do that with others. And I'm doing it to trigger the shit out of you, Laura. I hope you like that. Oh no! Steam did it! Even better. Laura, you have a wrench. You should time her out for it. But the House of Lords' decision now puts pressure on Tory Remainer MPs, who have the numbers to overturn May's wafer-thin majority when the bill returns to the Commons next month. Good. While May is she is a Remain voter, she has made it quite clear she will honour the vote. As weak as she is a Prime Minister, and certainly tomorrow with the Prime Minister's questions I have planned, with the amount of research I'm having. Miss Steam, earlier you wrote should have put tits on the end. You meant should have. It's a pet peeve of Laura's. It actually triggers her. I'm surprised she isn't knocking on your door and trying to kill you yet. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, yeah. So May will actually honour the agreement, even though she doesn't want to. She has to. People have tried to put her on the spot in PMQs and get her to say her personal opinion, but her personal opinion doesn't matter. And yes, what I was actually going to say, she is going to get absolutely flayed in PMQs because she screwed up. Oh crap, have I just... bollocks. No, I didn't want to... got rid of the article. Okay, I'm going to get it on my laptop. That's fine. House of Lords Huff Post. That's fine. Oh, there's an article on House of Lords reform. That's nice. House of Lords is at risk of becoming a private. Yeah. Okay. There's no the article I had on my thing is not there. Where is it? Come on. Give me what? Give me. There's an article saying how the House of Lords should remain unelected. I disagree. I don't think it should be a House of Lords at all, though. I think it should be a Senate. Because that it kind of works. Kind of. Let's see if I can actually... I can't find the article. That's really silly. I accidentally slid something on the tablet. Oh, here we go. This was... Okay. This article's okay. I like this. So, to finalise that little thing about the House of Lords, yeah, you need to actually act in the interest of the people by respecting their vote. That's how you act in their interest. There's another article here that's interesting. With the latest revelations about 62 members of the House of Lords, none of whom have participated in a single vote in the last 5 years, claiming £360,000 in attendance fees and expenses, it is very easy to jump to the conclusion that the entire second chamber is full of money-grabbing lovers of the high life. That's exactly what they are. They're elitist, arrogant snobs, some of whom inherited their peerage, which to me is ridiculous. That is the epitome of privilege. In fact, that is the very privilege intersectional retards should actually be going after. because that is not meritocracy, the thing that people should be supporting. That is a fucking joke, an embarrassment, and I think people deserve better than that. What's this? Sounds like you need some motherfucking America. When I studied the law parts of my H&S diploma, don't you mean S&M diploma? 5 years ago, they were on about reforming the House of Lords. No, Laura, they talked about reforming the House of Lords about 15 years ago. It always gets mentioned, and it never happens. I don't know what it is. But any time a Prime Minister says they're going to do it, they then drive into the middle of the road and do nothing. They're no better than an ostrich burying its head in the sand, which I'm led to believe doesn't actually happen anywhere near as often as we might think. Right, so let's continue with that next article, because this is interesting. Indeed, the latest raft of bad publicity for the upper house comes only weeks after the former Deputy Speaker of the Lords was forced to resign after he was filmed snorting cocaine with prostitutes, whilst at the same time denigrating a number of other senior British politicians. Wow. Much like me not trusting a cocaine addict to operate on my brain, I don't trust a cocaine addict to make decisions on my behalf. The obvious conclusion is that the House of Lords needs reform. No shit. For fuck's sake, Margaret Thatcher was still in Parliament while in the House of Lords. I think didn't she have dementia or something while she was still in there? It's ridiculous. I bet it was the most degrading moment of her life. Going from being the most powerful person on the planet to being just another old fogey in a really dusty, crusty chamber filled with very rich snobs. Some of whom like cocaine. How lovely. Oh, let's read the chat at the same time. Here we go. That's not my chat, that's someone else's. You're on the loo. Congratulations. Remind me to keep my Psy away from Steam. I have some Psy. I have 2 of those. Mostly because I liked Raphael. Anyway. So, not only does the expenses systems need to be overhauled to ensure that payments to members are linked to how much time they spend on the floor of the House, but proper thought needs to be given to reducing the overall number of Lords. This is no different to the number of MPs. I think that number needs to come down as well. You see how crowded that room is. But also they're supposed to represent a certain percentage or number of people, I guess percentage like displaced population. It would make very little sense with areas that are more heavily populated to have less MPs than an area that is less densely populated, which is why I believe lines were being drawn up, which, if I remember correctly, I mentioned to Bear on that previous stream we did on Tony Blair, and it occurred to us that that Jeremy Corbyn would lose his seat, which would be hilarious. He wouldn't actually lose his seat, by the way. He would instead claim someone else's. Just think of any straight white male that has a London seat that happens to be somewhat very, very left-leaning Labour, and, well, Jeremy will get it instead. The Guardian reported in February that the number of Lords eligible to sit stands at an astonishing 850. You fucking what, mate? Making Britain the only country in the world with a... oh god, I don't know that word. I'm going to put it in the chat, and because I don't actually know this word. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll Google it. That's fine. Definition. Adjective, having 2 chambers. Oh, a legislative body having 2 chambers. I think this is bicameral. I will put it in the chat though, because I don't know this word. I've never seen it before. Yeah, there you go. That's the word. I don't know what it means. Well, I know what it means now. Sorry, but I did not know what it meant when it confused the living crap out of me. Where was I? Yes, the only country in the world with a bicameral legislature in which the upper house is bigger than the lower one, which makes absolutely no sense. Not only should it be smaller, but it should also be elected. Of course, it is rare that more than 650 members will attend the Lords, and on a daily basis it is far fewer than that. Very true. In fact, I rarely see that chamber even a third full. When I check on Parliament, House of Lords has a YouTube channel as well, and there have been some discussions on that channel, and I've watched it, and I've sat there, and I get it. I get why people fall asleep watching that shit. In fact, thinking about it is making me yawn. Okay? What's more, the numbers are set to rise further as well. Okay, this was a while ago. David Cameron appointed a raft of new Tory peers so that the Lords' membership better reflects the makeup of the Commons. Isn't that nice? He did all those top dollar patrons of his a solid service, you know. I think those are the ones that people brought into question were questioning when he resigned. One solution that has been consistently raised with regards to Lords reform is to make the second chamber a wholly or mostly elected body. Yes, elected, entirely elected. Okay, I get that some people have inherited the title of Lord. Perhaps those people can just retain their title and all that land and all that money they have accumulated and maybe not blown entirely. But quite frankly, you haven't earned anything, and our society, our culture has shifted in such a way where it is important to earn what you do, to earn the rewards, the benefits that you have got, instead of being born into it, which, let's face it, it sets people up only for snobbery, elitism and inbreeding, because that's not exactly uncommon with the wealthy. Especially when they think that they can only breed good people by, you know, breeding with their family. So, firstly, the House of Commons is deemed the superior legislative house because its members are elected, and they therefore have legitimacy in that they are accountable to the electorate. Isn't that the whole bloody point? Yet, if the upper house were also elected, which would be superior? The House of Lords would be superior. If elected, it would be almost like how Congress and the Senate operate. I do believe that the Senate is superior in some regards. I only vaguely remember the only issue I took with stuff I'd seen about the House of Lords, Senate and Congress was term times. Because don't Congress get re-elected more frequently than that of the Senate? Which I get. I do think Senate do a bit more than fucking House of Lords. Maybe that's just me, though. In fact, there are some Americans in the chat. Perhaps you could educate me. All the hereditary lords are from Norfolk, then? Yes. Yes. I actually think they might be. They should all have limited to in either house, say 8 years. I'm not with Parliament. I'm not House of Commons. That is specifically. I'm not too fussed about that. It definitely House of Lords. I think. Perhaps if the terms were a little longer but limited to 2 terms, I wouldn't take such offence. But maybe that's just me. Yes, the House of Lords shouldn't, but yet they seem to throw themselves into these kind of messes where they take a side. And they shouldn't really put themselves in with a political party, but when it comes to certain policies, their bias starts to show. Close that. There we go. Right, sorry. I had a few messages that were bugging me. Let's have a look. Proposed legislation would get stuck between the two houses as neither could claim a monopoly on legitimacy. Just look across the pond at the Okay, so I take issue with that particular statement. First of all, the Prime Minister is, the Commons is where this is all debated and set up. I would argue then the House of Lords isn't to then decide whether or not it's in the people's interest, because they're snobs and can't. It should then be on the finer details, amending it if it doesn't work for the people. And then again, that obviously brings up the question of, if they're not elected, they're going to add amendments that suit them, not the people. Which is another reason why it should then be an elected chamber, not a selected chamber. Or am I being too dense here? Perhaps people in the chat could tell me, because honestly, I just don't know. Imagine if we had more party-affiliated elected politicians who, rather than effectively scrutinising legislation, either supported or opposed the government line because their party whips told them to. Considering how, and this statement is, considering how divided the current crop of politicians are, I don't think anyone gives a shit about the whip. No one cares, because you're not going to be able to toe the backbenchers in line, especially when you're talking about such a divisive subject, something that has genuinely torn parties down the middle. Right. Also, turnout at elections is already low. They weren't for Brexit, though. In fact, that turnout was higher than the last 3 general elections in this country. Not even a joke. The turnout was so piss poor in those 3 that I started to question the legitimacy of those elections when I saw the turnout for Brexit, which was such a big turnout. I think it was over 75%, I think. The turnout was really good. And people then said, oh, well, 75% can't truly represent the entire country because, not only did not all those eligible to vote turn up, but it didn't mean all people got to vote. I just got my shovel and carried on digging the salt. It was quite... The mental gymnastics involved was quite astonishing. It was gold medal worthy, let's face it. Finally, the majority of members of the House of Lords have been appointed usually because they have had successful careers in valuable sectors of the British economy, or because they have made valuable contribution to public life. In other words, they have crucial experience that is often lacking in politicians today, who are, let's face it, getting younger and younger. So, in this respect, the House of Lords generally does a very effective job in scrutinising legislation, recommending changes that are often accepted by the Commons. This change, the one we're referring to earlier about the House of Lords voting for an amendment to be added, no. The Commons probably will accept it because most of them will remain bitches, but it should not be there, because it's not adding something in the interest of the people, it's adding something in the interest of them. I think, isn't John Major in the House of Lords? Jack Straw as well. I think John Major's an ardent Remain voter. He's the same little bitch who said once that we would never do anything we'd never give up our powers in the EU. 7 years later, he's given up like half a dozen powers. He's such a shit negotiator. Someone should remove his voice box. Elected representatives are incredibly important to the fabric of our nation. Come to America, get you some freedom. When Miss Steam goes to America, okay, and you eventually try and get her to become a naturalized citizen, I want you to get her, when she's swearing an oath, maybe get her to sing the national anthem, and just have her start by going, America, fuck yeah, because I think that would actually be the funniest shit ever. Anyway, let's continue. Where were we? Oh yes. Certainly the upper house needs reform in a number of areas, not least to ensure that numbers do not balloon to ridiculous proportions. You mean like 850? And let's not forget here, you mentioned earlier about how some have made valuable contributions to public and bring valuable knowledge and experience, or have contributed to the British economy. Okay, what about those religious nuts and those ones that inherited their title? Honestly, those people don't deserve it. No offense, I'm not really... Okay, this could make me sound anti-royal. I'm not really anti-royal. But I see the Queen as someone who brings value to our country, money-wise. So I don't really take issue. But the House of Lords just make us look dusty, crusty, old, and quite frankly, pathetic. They are the epitome of class difference. Unless you... Oh, someone might remember this. There was a TV show a long time ago of a family that were lords, royal. They had a royal connection. They had a lord title to their name, but they'd squandered their millions. They squandered the wealth, and they existed in very small areas of this ginormous mansion, all this land. It might be Fulham. Was that it? Was that his name? But it was quite interesting to see how far down they had sunk. Because I know they tried to make money, and I don't remember if they ever did or if they had to sell it. Because I don't know where they would live after that, since, all they've known is a mansion. And they had lots of kids, I believe. Someone might remember this. But it was quite an interesting program. Let's see if I can find it. Lord Fulham? Is that it? No, maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember. No, not him. No, not Lord Fulham. But he is, in fact, yeah. He served in Parliament as an assistant whip. Committees. Oh dear. This is terrible shit. I don't want to look at that. Okay, so there is one other article that's of interest, and it's the House of Lords is at risk of becoming a private members' club for lobbyists. I should probably check the chat because I didn't do that. Fulfords, thank you. Yes. Oh. Yes. Oh god, the Fulfords. Oh dear, I remember this. So I'm gonna find. Okay. The Fulfords, right. More than a dozen years have passed since the Fulfords family, or given them full title, the fucking Fulfords, effed and jeffed their way into the public's consciousness in 2004. Okay, so how are they doing now? Back on. Okay, so they're back on TV. Oh, one of their sons entered the Big Brother house. They had 3,000-acre family estate. Okay. Francis writes. Okay, so one of them, Francis, writes a daily blog of his goings on, approval of Trump, and despair at UKIP. People should check out the Fulfords, by the way, if you ever got to see this TV show, because they have quite the family estate, and it's quite interesting. I'm interested to see what happened. Oh, never mind. That is really interesting. I have to look that up later. And yes, the Fulfords looked very inbred. It was quite a funny show back then. It certainly got my attention. Let's see, where were you? Oh yes, so continuing on with this disdain of the House of Lords, because this is interesting to me. As if the House of Lords did not already look like a private members' club, an investigation by the Times has revealed that peers can continue to use the House of Lords subsidised dining rooms even after they retire. That means former politicians who are not elected but selected for the role are enjoying cheap food and drink thanks to taxpayers. Basically, it's just another way of saying, oh look, old people are getting free shit. I don't care too much about that. It is obviously, it sounds as silly as the expenses scandal, where one person claimed for a duck pond. I can't remember the name of the politician who did that, but that was funny. In all, £1.2 million per year is used to subsidise food and drink in the House of Lords, which is actually surprisingly low. I thought that would be at least with another zero on it. For champagne, while they're making really, really tough decisions. You know, like how to screw over the British people as best as possible. Now, I'm not totally going to rag on them for this whole stream. I will point out that they have sometimes intervened when stupid shit has gone down. I just can't remember any of it because it's so few and far between. Let's continue with this article. A menu for... Oh dear, no, we're not going to do that. There's mention of a lifelong... Oh, fuck off with the advert. No, we're not having that. We're not having that. Let's mute the website because I can't have that. That's stupid. There we go. Right. There is a Life Lib Dem peer that said that the House of Lords, I guess commissary, I guess is what you want to call it, is the best daycare centre for the elderly in London. If that is true, then I think we need to start moving a lot of old people in there. Maybe it's the House of Lords that's stopping us from having the place renovated. I mean, they've done so many surveys on it, on Parliament, because it needs to be renovated and restored. But it can't be. So billions gets pumped into this. I don't know who's the retard that's stopping it, because eventually it's just going to come down, okay? It can look old and fancy for as long as you want, but eventually it's just going to come down. And we're going to end up with people basically debating in those construction offices. You know, the metal sheeted ones? Yeah, those. The privileges afforded to retired peers include the right to use the Chambers Library, which I don't care about, the Peers Guest Room, the Peers Dining Room with up to 5 guests, and the Barry Room. I have no idea what the Barry Room is. Since 2015, when a law was introduced allowing peers to resign, 70 have done so. But they can also bring guests. Well, it's nice that they get to quit, but retain all the perks. I assume when they left, they didn't hand in their ID badge. Although, of course, in this instance, their ID badge is the wrinkles on their face. They're really, really wrinkly faces. Like maybe they've got a little chip in the jowls. I don't know. Taking this into account, this means there is a potential for 420 unelected men and women to have unrivaled access to the 800 currently active peers in Parliament per sitting day. That's nice. That offers up the opportunity to manipulate people. Great. Because that's what we want. I know that sounds tinfoil hatty, but honestly, I'm more inclined to believe there's some truth to that. I'm hoping I'm not the only person, but it's highly likely that I'm utterly insane. Let's see, what's the chat say? Do they draw a salary for being in the House of Lords? Yes, they get over £300 every day. Oh, really? Blue-footed booby. Right. Gosport. Okay. As a Canadian who is interested in international politics, I have a question. How does the House of Lords work? It seems weird to me. Okay. I'm going to post in the chat for you the link I posted there earlier, just for you. Okay, this pretty much summarises what they are. It's from the Parliament official page. I could actually pull something up pretty quickly. I could actually go and get something. House of Lords, because there is a video of it, and I really think oh, where's the bloody I don't like it when they oh, that's nice. The Noble Lord guidance laws. This is not normal. Oh, there was an argument in 1999. There was an argument. Oh, it's interesting. I might see about pulling that up about reforming the House of Lords. But for now, I'm gonna go. It's only got 4,000 subs. This House of Lords channel. I say only 4,000 is a lot of subs. But there should be a video on what is the House. What is the purpose of the House of Lords? Oh, there's a lot of crap here. I take it all back. There's nothing here of any use. Oh, hang on, maybe there is. Nope, select committees. It's nonsense. But I will... They normally do have something there of use. About the House of Lords. Here we go. Something of interest. Right, this is a playlist of videos from them. This will link to Omegon hug. Right. There is an oh, is the video any good? So according to this, the description of the video, the noble lord, the chairman of the committees, has to give guidance from the woolsack. This is not normal. The hereditary peers are in their dying days as they discuss Commons amendments to the bill in 1999, which can basically be summarised with: something happens, everyone yells order. Oh, amazing. I may I'm going to link that as well in the chat for you, because I can see it and that's amazing. Yeah. Right. Where's that article? Because I wanted to finish it. Where we go? Oh, here we are. All of this in the context of what is already an unelected and undemocratic chamber, one in which 455 lords claim more than average take-home pay of full-time employees during the 2016 to 2017 session, despite the House sitting for just 141 days. Now this, the number of days Parliament is active is actually quite a common argument. And this is not just the House of Peers, it's also the House of Commons, because they have reduced the number of days that they are in Parliament, which annoys a lot of people. Now obviously the counter-argument is, oh well, they do a lot of work outside of Parliament in select committees and meeting constituents and, you know, photo opportunities and I don't know, cleaning their duck pond. But as far as I'm concerned, you are a public servant. Much like taking abuse from us, you work for us. You are my bitch. Essentially, that's what you are. And if you're going to work 141 days, or I think with politicians it might be about 150. I have to quickly Google that. I think it's a bit unreasonable to expect to be... unreasonable to expect full-time pay, or expect to earn several times more than what someone would earn for full-time pay when, you know, you're not there for much. Number of common sitting days by session since 1945. No, I don't want to look at... Oh, God, maybe I do. Fuck it. Let's pull this up. I think the cat just came in here. Oh, the number has gone down. Okay, so... From 2010 to 2012, it was over 250. Over that, nearly 300. But since then, it's averaged around just over 150 days. Some of these people, especially in government, earn, you know, they earn a lot. I mean, I know some will say that it's not a lot, but some earn over 70 grand a year in Parliament. I'm sorry, but that's a lot of money. Even after tax, that's a lot of money. Let's not forget here, a lot of them can claim expenses, so they're not exactly suffering. I will, of course, as well link this for anyone who's interested in looking at it. And you're welcome for the stuff. Yeah. Okay, 2-pump meme dump. Well, we've had this antiquated system for centuries. So, yeah, we're not best proud of it at this moment in time. It's a bit of a joke. It's the point where I think we're becoming a joke. I think. Maybe. Anyway, let's carry on. This week's revelation about retired peers is further evidence that the House of Lords is in desperate need of democratic reform, which will never happen, let's face it. I'm not saying no. Okay, maybe I should rephrase that. It won't happen for a while. I think you'd have to get a whole house on board. And then what? How do you manage to legislate that the House of Lords be disbanded? And then how do you take away the peerages from those that have been given them from childhood, or because they're related to the Church of England? Sorry, not related, but connected to because of their poxy faith. I'm not entirely convinced it can be done, but it might just be me on that one. I'm not sure just yet. Let's have a look at the comments on this. There must be some. There are no comments on this article. Oh, that's lame. Okay, that sucks. I was hoping for something. Oh dear God! I just realised when I tabbed out of that article, I had one of the Fulfords. The picture of the dad, his eyes. Yeah, no, he's inbred. Yeah. The butter knife thing made England a joke, but like I said, you're welcome to... Yeah, thank you. £300 a day for working less than half the year. Who, and then something to assassinate... Yeah, I get it now. I honestly don't know, but if you could simply take someone's peerage by assassinating, I would consider it. Because I think, well, I don't have to... Based on some of this, you don't have to turn up for years, so I don't particularly care. I could just sit at home collecting over a grand a week after tax and do nothing, which is pretty damn sweet. I'm kind of on board with that because I think it'd be beneficial to my financial security. Let's go with that. I think it'd be quite amusing as well. But on the subject of the House of Lords, and I'm very much aware that I'm going to be repeating earlier points. The House of Lords clearly has shown itself to not be something that actually works in the interest of the people. They believe themselves to be above the people. It does not matter how much you've contributed to society and in what way you have done that. If you act in a way that then goes against the will of the people, who do you represent? Because by acting the way you have, you've made the decision, the conscientious decision, that you are better, or you know better, but provide no evidence to prove this. It is asserted through your actions. And there is a huge sense of entitlement. You're quite right. I do want to quickly... Let's have a look again at the Twitter. Okay, so I'll read a couple more tweets before I finish here. Massive defeat for the government on the customs union in the House of Lords, where the Brexit lies have been cruelly exposed. But it's not enough for peers to hear the truth and then get a chance to vote. The people need a vote on the final deal too. The deal on the final thing, I'm not too sure about. I somewhat believe we, the public, have played our part. I think if you then had to lay the deal out and explain it to the common man, woman, or young person, especially those that don't actually understand politics and think the NHS is a part of the EU, I think it would be quite difficult to explain some of the nuance and, you know, what shit belongs to us. Anyway, let's have a look at another one. Okay. The idea that a bunch of pampered placemen elected by nobody can interfere in the Brexit process is an affront to democracy. The voting power of the House of Lords must be removed. If the House of Lords is to stay, I don't think that it should have its power removed. But I do think that it shouldn't have the power to vote down things without suitable evidence. I think that's the key part, because they don't provide evidence. They simply vote on it. And I know that there have been a number of debates in the House of Lords over a whole plethora of subjects. However, they have not done anything to earn their spaces truly, or show that they have the knowledge to debate these subjects. Let's not forget here, they have more peers than they have MPs, and quite a lot of those peers don't have political backgrounds at all, and yet somehow are permitted to vote on these issues but have no political background. I know there's a straw man in there, I know, but I just don't care. As we read one more tweet. Let's find one. Oh, here we go. From Patrick O'Flynn. Remainers couldn't win a democratic vote, so they have to make do with winning an undemocratic vote in the unelected House of Lords. I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I fucked it up because it was so well written, and apparently I'm illiterate. I'm done with that. That's, you know. What am I doing? Oh yes, let's read the chat for another minute or two. I like your video on chavs, made me laugh. I'm glad it did. But I think a number of Americans didn't get it, which is fine. Basically, chavs are wiggers. Will you establish a Congress in its place or some other form of legislation? I don't take we have MPs, and that is kind of our Congress, to be honest. Our parliamentary system, I do appreciate it. I certainly appreciate the fact that we can hold our leader to account. You couldn't do that in Congress. You can do it, though, in Parliament. A number of parliaments adopted things that we do because they culturally appropriated it. And I think that's good. Prime Minister's Questions is a perfect example of that. I would love to see Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump shouting at each other over a dispatch box. That would be hilarious. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if peers didn't offer their services for the right price. If they haven't already, that is, because it wouldn't surprise me if this was something that had in fact been caught out by a mole for one of the many newspapers in this country that suck ass. Anyway, I think this should be checks and balances in government. It's just a shame we don't seem to get it right. Quite right. This is all quite embarrassing, and it's a shame that the House of Lords is trying to do what they do, which doesn't benefit anyone but them. Because most of them are petrified of the idea of not being a part of the EU. Right. Anyway, elect Nigel. Nigel is spelled Nigel. Okay? And I think I'm going to end this here because, well, I've been up all day. I've been up quite a lot. I need to sleep, okay? Tomorrow, 9:30 PM GMT, I'm going to be back on this channel with when you give me, I don't know, a blowjob, I guess. When I, with 8-Bit Thought, going to be covering Prime Minister's Questions, which will be on, I don't know, whatever it was I said it was going to be on originally. The whole scandal about Caribbean people and their rights in this country. The Commonwealth, essentially. There's a name for it, and I know it. Where is it? Hang on. Oh, there it is. Yes, the Windrush scandal. That's what it's called. And yes, we will certainly get to that because I found some rather interesting images from Diane Abbott about evidence, and oh dear, Theresa May is going to get fucked tomorrow. So thank you all for joining me. I'm going to stop now before I say anything else even more stupid than saying I'll accept a blowjob. Yes, I shall be watching this. Can everyone in the chat, just before I finish, write 2 words for me? Should of. Because it will piss Laura off, and that will make me laugh. Yes, and bye-bye, everyone.